Wolf, add Mike Huckabee to the growing list of Republicans publicly taking one another down as they fight for the soul of their party. The former Arkansas governor and presidential candidate is blasting some Republican leaders. Quote here, "It's hard to keep from laughing out loud when people living in the bubble of the Beltway suddenly wake up one day and think they ought to have a listening tour. And it's even funnier when their first earful expedition takes them all the way to the suburbs of Washington, D.C., unquote. Huckabee's a funny guy. He's referring to that National Council for a New America formed by the likes of Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain. Their first meeting was held in a suburb of Washington, D.C., a restaurant in Northern Virginia. Huckabee also suggests the Republican Party is at risk of becoming as irrelevant as the Whigs if it moderates its policies. And that sounds very much like what Dick Cheney and Rush Limbaugh have been saying. These right-wingers are not helping the Republican Party to portray itself as either more moderate or more inclusive. And while Huckabee's a lot more likable than either Limbaugh or Cheney, the message is just as shrill. And at the end of the day, it seems like Republicans are self-destructing without any help at all from the Democrats. Meanwhile, speaking of the former vice president, his daughter is now picking up right where he left off. Liz Cheney suggests President Obama appears to be siding with terrorists for at first agreeing to release photos showing alleged abuse of prisoners in Iraq and Afghanistan during the Bush administration. The president has since changed his mind. He's now ordered government lawyers to object to the release of these photos, saying that it could endanger our troops overseas. The question, though, is this: how damaging is it for the Republicans to continue to criticize each other publicly? Go to CNN.com/Cafferty File and post a comment on my blog. Wolf?
Democrats love to do that. At least they used to like to do that all the time. Now the Republicans have a chance.
The Democrats, for a brief moment, appear to be remarkably well organized and in somewhat of an agreement on what the agenda is. That's totally unlike the Democrats.
Yeah, it'll change.
True.
Thanks, Jack. Be careful when you hit send.
The lesson in that story is that it vindicates old guys like me. I stay the hell away from that technology because I don't understand it. I'm not interested in learning about it. But these old doofuses think it's cool. That's reason not to vote for this guy. Whatever he's running for, I'd vote against him. He thinks it's cool to go on there. I'll announce on Twitter. And he does more damage to himself in 30 seconds than, I mean, it's not cool. You don't get it. You never will. And just put it in the newspaper. Question, how damaging is it for the Republicans to continue to criticize each other publicly? Bob in Indiana, I view it as amusing. It confirms the Republicans have no direction or leadership. A three-party system may well emerge from the fall of the GOP. I'm hearing something in this, so I'm going to get rid of it. Biz in Pennsylvania writes, I remember a line from the Godfather movie. Every now and then, you have to have a war to get rid of the bad blood. I think this is what's happening now in the Republican Party. If the end result, though, is Rush Limbaugh, Newt Gingrich, and the rest of the bad blood still pumping through the party's veins, then the party's doomed. Stefan writes, it's very damaging. You'd think after their tough defeat last November, they'd come together. I guess they haven't learned their lesson. They have no clear leader because everybody wants to be in charge. Missy writes, I actually don't think it's damaging at all. It's time for the Republicans to weed out their weakest links. It would be a lot worse to pretend there are no problems in that party. Chuck in Ohio writes, Republicans can continue to argue, yell, and scream at each other. They can send out all the high-profile Republicans they want to listen to the people and gather ideas, but they won't get anywhere until they retrieve their soul from the religious kooks they sold it to many years ago. And Carl writes, my party always wants to tout Reagan. Well, rule number one they forgot was thou shalt not speak ill of another Republican. I mean, really, how bad is it if we make the Democrats look well organized? If you didn't see your email here, you can go to my blog, CNN.com/Cafferty File. Look for yours there among hundreds of others. Do you Twitter, Wolf?
No.
Oh, wait, let me put this in so I can hear what you're saying.
All right. The answer is no, not yet. But I assume one of these days I will, like everybody else on Earth.
What, do you have one of those Facebook things?
No, goodbye.
I have both of those, but CNN did it. I have nothing to do with either one of them. Some kid here found them on the internet and said, look here, what there is.
We'll talk later, Jeff. Thanks.
Very busy.